So here we are once again having another conversation, critiquing the tricky question of what it is to live well as a creative or artist in the world today. My name is Andrew Macklin. I am an actor and a qualified career coach working with different people in the arts industries and creatives across those sectors. And to help me interrogating that tricky question today is actor David Acton. But of course, not only an actor, David's got many enthusiasms as well. David's also a keen motorbike enthusiast, sailor, gardener, but as an actor, has performed in over 12 productions at the RSC, multiple productions in London and the West End, including work at the Young Vic, the Old Vic, work with Propeller Theatre Company, with Peter Hall Company. You've toured UK and America, and most recently, I was delighted to hear, David, delighted and enthused to hear that you've most recently been nominated by New York's Drama League Award in the category of Distinguished Performance Award, along with your co-star Ben Porter, for the revival of The Woman in Black, which opened at the beginning of this year in New York. And the revival has also been selected for Best Revival by by the New York Drama League Award. That must have been fun to hear.
That was absolutely fantastic to hear. Yeah, amazing. I've never won an award before in my life. Well, I've never been put up for an award before in my life. I think the last time I won a prize, I was 10. So a school prize. So it was brilliant, and brilliant for the production. There was another group called the Off Broadway Alliance, and they had their awards, and we did win. We were only up for one category in that, and that was Best Play Revival, which we won. We got it, which is fantastic. It's amazing for Woman in Black. And I think Woman in Black it got an award many years ago from the Manchester Evening News, as it was then, for a touring production. That was some time ago, some years ago. But it's not really won awards in the UK. It's a production that's gone on for years and years and years, but not been had awards. So it was brilliant to get this revival up in this brilliant theatre, the McKittrick Hotel, and won Best Play Revival. So that's going to be great on the posters. I mean, the producers are delighted. It's all going to help to sell seats when we go back out to New York and pick it up again, hopefully.
And I mean, comparatively, how is it compared to that award you got when you were 10?
Well, comparatively, well, I don't know. I suppose it's a reminder that all things are possible still.
That's a nice.
But it's great. I mean, it's an award for the production. It's great. I mean, what's fantastic is that the production, because we're doing it in New York. We're playing at a venue called the McKittrick Hotel, which is it's where Sleep No More is on, and it's a huge warehouse in Chelsea. And we're in a studio, well, it's not a studio theatre, but a small theatre. We're in a room at the top with quite a low ceiling, a bar down one side. It's the most extraordinary venue. The audience arrive and they go into you wait outside, queue up outside, and then go into a darkened lift with an operator, which moves so slowly, you don't know whether you're going up or down. I mean, it's unbelievably slow. And you end up somewhere in the building, turned out into another dark corridor with someone else to greet you, who points to the restaurant car, which is an old railway carriage on one side, straight ahead for the cloakrooms and the hats and coats. And the whole place, and then off that is the room where we're playing it, a darkened, there's a low ceiling, claustrophobic venue that only seats 150 people. There are free shots of whiskey for the audience when they arrive, if they want it. So it's a completely different atmosphere from doing it in a theatre. And that strange venue that we're playing it in, and the unusual arrival for the audience really sets the tone for the piece. It's the most perfect venue. So it's a great show. It's a great play, as we know, and it's been on for over 30 years now in the UK, and tours every couple of years, as well as being on in the West End. And they've tried for years to get it on in America, in New York. And it's, for various reasons, it's always failed. There was one production, well, I don't get all this, but it just never worked. And this time it has, by going into a smaller venue and this extraordinary venue, which is just perfect for it. So, I mean, I think, you know, we won award for Best Revival of a Play. As well as the play, it's the show, the production, the performances, but it's also the venue, the most extraordinary and perfect venue for that play.
I mean, you played it in the West End, didn't you? How long were you on the production when it was in the West End?
How long did I do it for?
Yeah.
We played, the contract's there in 9 months. So I played it there from 2011 to 2012 for 9 months. So it was 319 performances. It's an odd number because of the Christmas week. I've also did it 5 years later, 6 years later. I did it on tour around the UK. So I've played it to all kinds of different audiences and sizes of theatre. You know, the big 2,000 or 1,800 seat theatres in Manchester. I think the Gaiety in Dublin, that's probably an 1,800 seater, if not 1,500, maybe 18. That was a fantastic venue. A fantastic audience. That's one of my favourite audiences. There, and Belfast was fantastic. And it's also, but also, you know, just playing it in that huge variety of places, it works anywhere, but it kind of works best in the smaller venues. So to play it in the small theatre, because we only play to 150 with the McKittrick, which is obviously a huge difference. It's a really small, claustrophobic, intimate venue.
I mean, it's. I saw it in the West End, I think, on a matinee years ago. I don't think it was you at the time, but I mean, it struck me that it's a real actor's piece. I mean, it's, you know, for those who haven't seen it, it's two actors creating this entire world with a multiplicity of characters, especially your role, your partner. There's a lot of, well, yeah, predominantly you're playing a wide variety of people. I'm interested, how does, because it's quite, when I first saw it in the West End, obviously it's a huge space. How does it feel doing it in New York in that much smaller, more what sounds like claustrophobic sort of environment, if I'm not too off? Yeah, how does it feel different to perform there and to an American audience?
In some way, is you've got two questions there, haven't you, about playing it? Yeah, I do play a lot of different characters. I play 7 different characters in it. So, I mean, that was the first challenge that's the kind of big challenge and joy of playing that. But also, because there are 2 of us, there are actually 2 very different roles. It's because the young actor, plays a young actor who plays Kipps as a young man. So he's sort of, it's sort of a young leading actor's sort of part. Whereas the old man's part, playing 7 characters, it's a character actor's part. You've got to play all these different characters. What's also interesting about it, and a challenge I found, was that 4 of those characters all come from the same small town in Yorkshire. So they've all got, so you can't have a Scottish accent and an Irish accent and a Southwestern accent. You know, you've got to. They've all got to, all those 4 characters have got to be very different, but all have the same accent. So that's a bit of a challenge. You've just got to find other ways of doing it, of being physically different, without being grotesque, but trying to find different rhythms of movement, rhythms of speech, ways of talking, tone of voice, all those sort of things. But that's really interesting and really enjoyable and really satisfying. It's a really satisfying play to do. It's really enjoyable. I mean, I've done it probably about 600 times, 600 performances now altogether. And I've never, ever tired of it. And I don't think I ever will. And I'm really looking forward to going back to New York and taking it up again and doing it again. The audiences are always different. We always say that, what's the difference between playing it in New York and playing it in London, or in Ireland or throughout the country? And audiences for that show, for every performance of every play, they're always different. But you really notice it in that. I mean, markedly different. You can play the show, and this is true in New York as it is in anywhere else in London. Though I suppose the difference is that you can play to almost total silence all the way through from top to bottom. And you can play to an audience that is full of laughter all the way through. And then you can play to an audience that might be very quiet in the first half, not laughing very much. You get to the interval and think, God, they're a bit dull tonight. And then they scream in the second half. Or they can laugh a lot and you think, God, we're on to a winner here. And there's silence in the second half. You never know. You never know how people are going to react, whether you're going to get the laughs, whether you're going to get the screams, whether you're going to get jumps, whether you're going to get what kind of comments you can hear. I mean, of course, in New York, you can hear the comments much better because we're just so much closer to the audience. Oh, fuck. Shit! You know, oh, the little dog. All these little things. But I suppose in New York, when they're loud, they are, you know, when they're vociferous, they can be, the reactions can be greater. They can be really vociferous, which is great. I mean, they're fabulous audiences to play to. Fabulous, really enjoyable.
I mean, your enthusiasm jumps out at being, at the thought of doing the play and being in the play, which is interesting because I think a lot of people maybe not involved in acting might assume that doing a production that many times would result in the opposite, would result in a sort of a dulling of the mind at least, and a sort of repetition, and it can be very hard, I think, to describe and really get across to people how different it is, and how, like you describe, how each audience is so different and the challenge of it is so different each time. And interestingly, I mean, you know, this last one that you'll be doing in New York, I mean, you're in the same category, not that I have to remind you, in this Distinguished Performance Award as Jake Gyllenhaal, Jonathan Pryce, Tom Hiddleston, quite a few others. I don't mean to embarrass you in any way, shape, or form, but I mean, you talk about the performance really freeingly. And like you say, I mean, you mentioned some of the difficulties in trying to play seven different parts, essentially from the same town. But clearly, you know, you're doing something really, really well there. What's it like to be in that category?
Well, it's pretty astonishing. I think it's really fantastic. I mean, it is kind of unbelievable. I mean, realistically, I don't think we have a chance. You know, it's one thing, but the Off Broadway Alliance is just the Off Broadway plays. And to win that was amazing for the Best Play Revival. But this is Broadway. This is all the big guns as well. And also, I mean, I don't think we really realistically have much chance, either of us, of winning Best Performance, or it's up as well for Best Revival of the Play. So, and I don't think we probably have much chance of winning that either. I think the chances are very slim, especially in these times at the moment with, you know, the theatre in such a parlous and difficult state, this side of the Atlantic and the other side, and all around the world. You know, they've got to be very careful. They want to. The point of these awards is to promote the whole theatre business and ultimately get bums back on seats as much as possible. So, you know, to even if someone thought, well, that's astonishing, it's a really standing out performance. You know, to give an award to a little play or to an unknown actor is sort of kind of not pointless, but you know, you can do more with this award if you give it to someone. You can make better use of it. It's got to be there for a purpose. So I mean, overall, I don't think we stand much chance at all. But I mean, to be sitting on a list with those people, with Jonathan Pryce and Tom Hiddleston and all those big Jake Gyllenhaal, all those big guns, is astonishing. Great.
I mean, I would say it's very generous of you to say that the award might do more for theatre if it were given to another big name. But I can really hear the excitement with just being in that category. One sort of topic. I mean, hearing you talk about how you do the work that you do in that part brings to mind a kind of a theme that a lot of the conversations has come up, which is, you know, specifically for actors, whether actors consider themselves artists or not. So there's a, you know, actor, artist, creative, this definition. For you, I mean, where do you stand with that? Would you consider yourself or think of yourself as an artist, or is it more interpretive, or is it craftsperson or actor, or where do you stand on that?
I think I probably think of myself more of a craftsperson than an artist, because we're kind of, you know, we haven't written the play, we haven't come up with this amazing quality design idea, we haven't directed it into a certain, you know, formed something, created something out of the bones of the script. We're there to interpret, really, to serve the play as best we can. And of course, yes, we are artists, but I don't kind of think of myself in that way. I think of myself as trying to serve a script, the play, the production, in the best way I possibly can. And therefore it's more of a craftsperson. I mean, I think it's my nature as well. It's not just a kind of when I was a child, we had a railway club. This is when I was kind of, you know, 10, 11, a model railway club. And there was the chap who led it, the creator, the artist, really, to create the landscape and the I mean, it was quite an extensive thing. But he was actually a boy, same age, 11-year-old, or with actually very little personality. Not a born leader, and I'm sure he hasn't, you know, doesn't have those sort of qualities, but he had a vision, absolute vision, which he put across to us. I mean, on what I used to do, I did all the minutiae. I like being quietly, making a little house that, you know, this big, painting roses on the side of it, and doing little plant, you know, all the little tiny things, the minutiae, the little details, to fill up the streets in the village or the town, or putting people on the platform, you know, that sort of thing. And I think that's sort of my nature. It is a gentle, little, quiet craftsperson, working away quietly with those around me and, you know, with myself. You know, that's how and I think that's sort of how I am, and that's how I approach my work, without thinking about it. I don't think about it, but I think that's still what I am, a craftsperson. I enjoy working with wood. I've got a workshop here now at home, which I've never had before. And it's in the garage, but I've kitted it out. I've got 2 workbenches, and I've got all the tools and everything around me. I spent the last 2 weeks kitting it all out. It's brilliant.
I mean, again, there's something really interesting in that. I mean, I recognize the same thing, a sort of sense of, I'm really interested in doing the work. I'm not really interested in, you know, what happens off stage, and sort of, you know, I think a lot of people outside of acting would look at it and kind of say, oh, well, clearly there's an ego, there's a need to be seen by all these people and be presented and be appreciated and wanted and all of that. And for me, it's always felt a little more like painting the roses on that small little house you were talking about. I'm very much in that little world, and not too interested in being pointed at myself in a sense. Do you think that's a common thing in actors?
I think so. I think, well, there are different types of actors, aren't there? And some of them obviously need very much push themselves to become famous. I mean, people go into this business to become famous, don't they? And other people are much happier with being a member of a company. And I think you and I both, that's what we like. That's how we work. And that's the kind of course, there are, if you've got a West End production, or nowadays the RSC production or the National, you've got to have star names, big names in the main parts. You do, because to draw people in. But I understand that. But the bulk of the company, the other 19, 20 members of the company are company people, by and large. And if they're not, they get fed up. They get unhappy.
A keen observation there, David. Yeah. I'm really interested in, I guess, the idea of intuition. So I think for a lot of actors and artists as well, there's something about swimming upstream very early on in doing a thing that society normally says that might not be the smartest thing to do. There's some sort of intuition at play, I think, early on, where an actor or an artist is like, this feels like the right thing to do, even if the odds are very, against me, but I'm going to run with this intuition.
Yeah.
And so I wonder for you, when did you intuitively know early on that you wanted to be a professional actor?
I really quite young. I was 12. I'm not sure whether at that time I knew I wanted to be a professional actor, because that word wouldn't have occurred to me. But I was in a school play at the age of 12, the first big one I did, and it was really good. And I found something that I was really good at and really enjoyed, and got huge satisfaction from. And then continued from there throughout the rest of the school career, the next 6 years, doing school plays as much as I could, doing drama as much as I could. And so there was no, that intuitive feeling came then, really, from the age of 12. Mm-hmm. And I think I told my mother when I was about 14, this is what I want to do. I'm going to be an actor. But I said to her, don't tell Dad, because I knew he'd disapprove. So we didn't. We kept it quiet for a couple of years, and then I did. And the kind of idea of swimming upstream against the grain. Yes, my dad always said. When I was about 30, my dad said to me, "Well, you've done it now. Isn't it time to sit yourself down and get a proper career, doing something that you can earn some money at?" Because I wasn't earning any money, and I said, "No, I'm going to keep going. This is what I want to do." So, in a way, it was never really a choice about it. It wasn't, an idea of, I'm determined to do this against what everybody says. It was just, that's what I was going to do from late childhood.
What were the, because that sort of authority voice comes up quite a lot. People talking about, there's someone, whether it be a parent or a teacher or someone who's, got a sort of cautious word to say early on to actors about what they want to go and do. What were the sort of beliefs or ideas put forward to you early on as to why it wouldn't be a good idea?
Why it wouldn't be a good idea to be an actor?
Yeah.
Well, the obvious ones: insecurity and no money. But I've kept going, and for years I've had insecurity and no money. Obviously, still have have insecurity, and we don't have much money. But we've kept going, and what's brilliant now is that. Touch wood, it keeps going, that I get work fairly regularly, and I'm married, raised 2 children, got 1 granddaughter, so it's sort of working out.
And what's allowed you, do you think, to kind of bypass the logical arguments that would say 90%, 98% of actors aren't working, won't work, and there's a lot of arguments to be said for why you shouldn't be an actor or a creative, and why it will be making life significantly harder than how it might otherwise be. And it can be hard to make, I think, logical arguments for it in a sense. And so it feels like each individual finds their own justifications or routes through it, or their own thinking for it. But for you, what's the thinking that you have around it that's allowed you to kind of carry on, do you think?
I think because I didn't want to do anything. It's just I didn't want to do anything else. At my early years, the very early years, when I first left drama school, were great. I went from job to job to job in rep theatres for the first 3, 4, 5 years. I was pretty much constantly in work. And then it just started dwindling away, got less, there'd be longer periods out of work. And it was 10 years before I got my first little telly job. And then there'd be a bit of telly, and then 4 months out of work, and then maybe a play, and then another 3 months out of work, or 5 months, 6 months out of work, and it's God knows what it's like nowadays for young actors starting. It was really hard then in the late 70s, early 80s, but now, of course, it's, unbelievably difficult. And a very, very different world. But I just kept going. And by the time I got to my mid-30s, work had virtually dried up entirely. And when I became a very good painter and decorator, and that's where I learned how to do carpentry, putting up shelves, putting in cupboards for people and all that sort of thing. Very good, very handy for me now at home. And that kept me going. And actually, by the time I was in my mid-30s, I did get fairly depressed about the whole thing. Absolutely no money and living, but I was on my own, so it's all right. The fact of living one winter, I managed to repair my boiler. Something went wrong with the boiler. I worked out, bloody hell, it was frightening. I managed to take out the electrics from it. Dealing with something that's with, gas, water, and electricity in one box. And I had no hot water in the middle of winter. And I managed to get the circuitry out of it, rig up something on some wooden frame so I didn't electrocute myself, and trace the part that had needed replacing. And I did it. I repaired it. So I then bought the part for £20, rather than, because I couldn't afford to bring someone in to, come and repair it for 200 quid or whatever it would cost. But anyway, I did it. But I couldn't do that if you were with a family, with children. You'd have to get things done straight away. So I was all right on my own. And by the time I was in my mid-30s, there was no work at all. I could get hardly anything. And I thought, I was beginning to think, well, I'm going to have to do something. And I became a sort of apprentice, really, an unofficial apprentice to a wooden boat restorer on the south coast. And I worked with him for several months, on and off, over a couple of years. And I really enjoyed that. And that's really interesting work. But it's almost worse paid than being an actor. The money is absolutely dreadful because, it's so expensive to restore an old wooden boat. And if you actually charge proper rates, you'd have to be a multi-millionaire to keep any kind of, even a small wooden boat, unless you worked on it entirely yourself. So it tends to be very poorly paid and hard work, working in awkward places, really awkward places in the points and corners and difficult places inside a boat. But fascinating work, and I really enjoyed doing that. And Derek Abra, the chap I was working for, is still going at 75. And his assistant, he finds it very hard. Sorry, I'm digressing a bit now. But I saw him last year, and he's an unbelievable craftsman. And his assistant is 82. And when they get a lot of work on and they get somebody else in, they get a third chap in, they bring him out of retirement, and he's 85. And it's because they can't get young people to come and work for them because the working conditions are hot, cramped, or cold and wet, and not a lot of money and long, hard hours. And it's very difficult to get young people to come and stay to learn that craft now. Anyway, that's a bit of a digression.
I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating because, you describe it as clearly it's something that you really enjoy doing, despite its low pay, awkward difficultness in doing it practically. And obviously it paid something to keep you going at that point. Well, what were the other benefits for you as a whole from spending time working on those boats?
The other benefit, that's very, oh, you've completely frozen. Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all right, yeah. I may just be really still.
All right, good. Yeah. Other benefits.
Sounds a bit seedy.
That's a very hard question to answer. I mean, it kept body and soul together. Body and soul, to get body and soul together. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed the work. I enjoyed living quite rough, actually. I was living on a friend's boat, which was quite hardy through the winter in the cold. The gas would freeze in the pipes, so there was no hot water in the morning. But at least I did have mains electricity because it was in a marina, which was very nice. And things would get damp. I mean, as soon as I got out of my sleeping bag in the morning, immediately put it into a black plastic bag, because otherwise it would just be instantly damp. And sopping wet. You wring it out by the end of the day if I forgot to put it in a bag. Everything had to be put into plastic bags. And crumpled up newspaper spread around the boat before I left it to go to work, to absorb as much water as I could. But that's kind of that sort of life I enjoyed. I like that. I like touring now. I like airports and railway stations and traveling and hotel rooms and turning up in a strange place and thinking, "Ooh, these dicks are lovely," or "Christ, this is a horrible place, but it's only for a week and I'll make the most of it." I enjoy the variety of it. I enjoy touring. And motorbikes, traveling by motorbike.
And what else? You mentioned there about, and I think this is a really important thing, actually, I think that is kind of not considered enough or a lot, this idea of keeping sort of body and soul together. And you mentioned about that work on the boat sort of helped give you that, as well as, perhaps the bike as well. What ways have you found over the years to keep body and soul together, either during work or outside of it, to kind of, maintain yourself in a sense?
I think for me, the big turning point was when I got married, and life changed then, because then I was no longer on my own. And that was later. I didn't get married till I was 41 and Mary was 42. And she already had a daughter, so I have a stepdaughter who's now 35. And we have our own daughter who was born a year later, Georgie. But that's a big change. Now, I don't really believe in these things, but when I was about 22, something like that, I was younger than that. I was 20. I was a student, and summer holidays I was working on an archaeological dig in the Sinai desert, and I met a gypsy woman there who read my palm, who said, "You'll struggle through for 20 years, and it won't be until you're in your 40s that some major event will happen and your life will change." And I don't know what the major event is, except possibly just means getting married. And so I'm part of a family. Well, I was always part of a family, but our own family. I think that's probably it. And from that time, actually, my life has changed. And maybe it makes, I was, that kept keeping body and soul together, but I was a bit kind of lost in a way in my earlier years, struggling from job to job and out of work, getting out of work jobs. But actually having a family has made all the difference. And it seems to have, and since that time, work, touch wood, has been fairly consistent, pretty consistent from then on. And I think nothing fantastic. I've never done nothing big. I'm a totally same sort of boat. We're kind of unknown. It's a really hard question when you meet strangers and they say, "Oh, should I know you?" No, I'm totally unknown. But we've kept going. We keep on going. We keep on working, and I think having a family is the big thing for me. And I have actually Robin Herford, the director of Woman in Black, who said to me, I seem to have a good work-life balance. And I think I do, because I have interests outside. Obviously, the family is the most important thing. Enjoying your work is of vital importance, I think. I know a lot of people don't enjoy their work, but if you're going to be an actor, you have to enjoy it. Some jobs are obviously more enjoyable than others, as you know, but by and large, you've got to enjoy your work. And I have interests outside, as you pointed out at the beginning. I have a garden which I look after, quite a big garden, and I wouldn't really describe myself as a motorcycle enthusiast, but I do enjoy my motorbike, and I love sailing. I sail when I can, obviously not at the moment.
Yeah, very much locked down. I wonder, I mean, it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a clear sort of shift at the point of getting married. Priorities, I assume, changed in different ways. And I guess a lot of the conversations I would have with people around that, there would be some difficulty in moving on because of the way in which they saw themselves. They saw themselves as a thing, as a, freelance independent actor or whatever. And there can be a bit of rigidity around moving into a different way of looking at things and a slightly different way of being. How did maybe your view of yourself or the industry change around that point? Because you said there was, priorities changed, and there seemed to be, luckily, a lot of consistent work after that. And I wonder, is there anything in the way in which you saw yourself or the industry that changed at that point?
I don't know that there was, actually. I think what changed was my luck. And it just came from just not long before getting married. I did a play at the RSC, and the assistant director was Ed Hall. And so we worked, because I played a small part and understudying, I worked very closely with Ed on that. Mm-hmm. And then for the next few years after that, I did lots of work with Ed, the Propeller that you mentioned before, the big introduction. But we did lots of other stuff as well. We did a radio play together. We did a computer game we did together. All sorts of different things, as well as, and a couple of plays outside. We did a play at Hampstead long before the new building was built. So obviously long before he took over, years ago, 20 years ago. But that was a great compilation of jobs, which it then led to other things and opened up other doors. And from that, I mean, it was kind of that fortuitous meeting with Ed, and then spending 3 months together in Tokyo together, getting to know each other and doing all those plays after that, that then opened up other doors, which led to a change of agent and a consistency of work coming in. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of luck, really, rather than my view of the industry. Mm-hmm. Before that, I was just struggling from job to job to job. Well, I still am struggling. I never know what's going to happen next. I don't have a career planned out. You finish one job and wait for the next one to come in, and hopefully it won't be too long. So still, that's absolutely nothing has changed. So I don't think my view of the industry changed. The industry obviously has changed over the years, quite a lot, considerably. But what changed, particularly for me at that point, was just my luck. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And maybe, and other things that, I mean, you don't kind of think about things, do you? Life just happens, really. I suppose my attitude to work changed. I had a greater focus on having to earn money, which changes you in some way, changes your attitude to work in some way, but it also means that I could never turn anything down, because if a job turned up, I had to take it, however much it was, somebody's paid. I couldn't say no to it, because I've got children to feed, mm-hmm. 2 children to look after, and Mary at home. Or we said very early on, Mary and I, well, let's take it in turn. We're both, she's an actor as well. We can take it in turns. So, I'll do a job and you're at home. And it's it can be fairly tedious doing the school run and to Tesco's and shopping and collecting after school and laundry and all that. It's fairly tedious and a lonely kind of life looking after children at home. So we said, well, we'll swap. I'll do a job and then you can do a job. But it just didn't. Life as an actor, for anybody, I suppose, doesn't work out that consistently, that neatly. And mostly, I work more than Mary has. But but at least one of us was working. At least one of us was able to bring in the money. But neither of us, if jobs turned up, could really afford to say no to them.
I mean, I think you've kind of encapsulated what I was going to ask in that, which was around how you think about getting work. And it seemed like it's clearly a case of luck playing a bigger part than it is the conscious making of a plan and a trajectory that you're trying to achieve or go towards. But I mean, how would you sort of phrase it as a kind of philosophy? I mean, if one philosophy is, you plan stuff and you work towards it, it feels like you're saying, actually, it's more fortuitous and luck-based. But how would you phrase it if you were to, if somebody much younger starting out was asking you how they should think about planning their career going on, what would you say?
Well, for me, I'm sure it's different for everybody. I mean, there are people obviously who can work out and have a trajectory and a career plan, and they're going to achieve this by then, achieve that by then. I've never had that kind of ambition or sense of control over my life, and I kind of enjoy the kind of happy-go-luckiness, really, of doing a job. What happens next? What's going to happen next? And I think I think I probably go by the old adage of you can't create luck, but you can create opportunities for lucky things to happen.
Nice. Can you put that in a mug and send it to me? That's pretty. I like that. You can't create luck, but you can create opportunities for luck to happen.
Yeah.
What is? I mean, some stuff obviously changes over the course of a career, and others stay very much the same. What for you is really important about being an actor that hasn't changed over the years?
I think very simply that my enjoyment of the work. I still enjoy it just as much as I ever did.
Mm-hmm. And finally,
it's a very simple, short answer. Sorry.
Yeah, no, God, there's no need for. I think it is as simple. I mean, is as simple as that. I think for a lot of people, myself included. I mean, like you say, around enjoyment. If you're not enjoying the work, then maybe the choice to be an actor, I don't know, maybe that might need to be reconsidered. I think it is fundamentally fun and fundamentally freeing, I think. And finally, what is it what does it mean to live well in the world as a creative or actor today?
I suppose it's different, isn't it, on the stage of whatever stage of life you're at. For me, because I'm 65, we were doing this play. We actually closed, The Woman in Black, we closed on, our last performance was the 12th of March. Mm-hmm. My birthday's on St. Patrick's Day on the 17th. And so I all through it, all leading up to my birthday, I joked. I said, "Look, I'm going to be 65 next week. I'm 65 on Tuesday, so I'm retiring then. I won't be in. You'll have to find somebody else on Wednesday because I'm retiring." And of course, actually, what's happened is that I have retired. We've all retired. I mean, hopefully, we'll come back out of retirement. Mm-hmm. But actually, and I'm actually rather enjoying this period of retirement. But as I say, hopefully we'll come back out of retirement, which it is. I mean, it's all beginning to pick up now. You can see the microphone sitting here. You know, it's little things are coming in. And I think for me, it's having a family, enjoying the work, and having a life, as we've said. I mean, it's kind of a summary of all we've been talking about, really, and having that work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Carry on, David. You're about to say. I cut you off.
Yeah, but no, I'm not sure what I was going to say. Go on.
Well, all I was going to say was just to thank you for taking time out of the garden today to come and share. I think what's been. I mean, and there's a whole other hour conversation I'd like to have with you about your your palm reading experience in the deserts of Sinai. Where were you?
Sinai.
I mean, that's a whole. It felt like you were reading some sort of fairy tale there for a second. I wasn't sure if there's more to investigate. But
God knows where she came from. This gypsy woman. She just appeared. We were in the middle of nowhere, absolutely nowhere. About 20 miles north of Santa Caterina, the monastery of Santa Caterina, Mount Moses, Mount Sinai. A little place called Wadi Tebet, the dry riverbed, excavating a Neolithic site. It was led by an archaeological team from University of Jerusalem University, and there were some Americans there and people from the university, and there were Bedouin who were there helping, organizing and arranging the site and helping out. And then suddenly this woman arrived out of nowhere. I mean, you kind of, middle-aged and with all sorts of, clothes and bells and, I mean, look, an extraordinary-looking person. She just appeared from nowhere, and she was only there for the day. But how did she get there, and where did she go to?
I'm surprised you're not more suspicious about all of this. But
yeah, well, as I said, I never really believed in it, but it happened. It was true.
David,
so is that coincidence, or did she really see something?
David, thank you very much for your time. Like I said, it's been excellent. I think it's really important to get a broader view of what's involved and navigating time as an actor and going through that journey. And so to hear you still talk with so much enthusiasm about it is quite inspiring, I think, and not only to myself, but I think to quite a few. And my fingers are crossed that you'll beat Tom Hiddleston in the upcoming awards.